Hiroshima, the day the world entered the atomic age. It was a quiet Monday morning in Hiroshima. The summer sun was already high, and the sky was perfectly clear, a calm, cloudless blue. Children were walking to school, shopkeepers were opening their doors, and workers were returning to their factories after the weekend. Despite years of war, there was an unusual sense of peace that morning. The air raid sirens had fallen silent for days. People began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. At exactly 8:15 a.m., a single aircraft appeared high above the city. It flew so high that most people barely noticed it. Inside that plane, named Enola Gay, 12 men carried something that would change the course of history, a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen. The bomb was called Little Boy. It was built not from gunpowder or metal fragments, but from the very building blocks of matter itself. For the first time in history, humans had found a way to unleash the energy hidden inside the atom, the same force that powers the stars. When the bomb was released, it fell for 43 long seconds. Then, without warning, a blinding flash illuminated the entire city. The temperature at the center of the explosion soared to over 1,000,000 degrees. In that instant, Hiroshima disappeared beneath a wave of fire and light. The blast flattened everything within 2 kilometers. Stone buildings crumbled like sand, steel beams melted, and wooden homes burst into flames. People standing in the open simply vanished, their shadows burned into the ground where they once stood. Those farther away were thrown to the earth by the shock wave, blinded, burned, and disoriented. Within seconds, an entire city had become a silent wasteland. The air was filled with ash and smoke. A dark, oily rain began to fall. Radioactive soot mixed with the moisture of the atmosphere. It was the first time in human history that an atomic bomb had been used in war. By the end of that day, more than 70,000 people were dead. By the end of the year, the number had doubled. Radiation poisoning, burns, and injuries claimed tens of thousands more lives. The survivors, known as hibakusha, carried deep scars, both visible and invisible, for the rest of their lives. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb fell on Nagasaki. Another city turned to fire and rubble. And on August 15th, Emperor Hirohito addressed his nation for the first time in history. His voice, calm and broken, announced Japan's surrender. The Second World War, the deadliest conflict humanity had ever known, was finally over. But peace came at an unimaginable price. The same scientific brilliance that had split the atom also revealed humanity's darkest potential. The world entered the atomic age, an age defined not by victory, but by fear. Nations rushed to build their own nuclear arsenals. The power to destroy cities, even civilizations, now rested in human hands. In the decades that followed, Hiroshima became a symbol, not just of destruction, but of remembrance, resilience, and peace. Every year, on the anniversary of the bombing, the people of Hiroshima gather at the Peace Memorial Park. They light candles, fold paper cranes, and float lanterns down the river, one for every life lost. They do not speak of revenge. They speak of hope. Hiroshima is a reminder that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, that progress without compassion leads to ruin, and that even in our darkest moments, humanity must choose light over fire. Because on that clear morning in 1945, the world saw what happens when science forgets its soul. And it is a lesson that must never be forgotten. Nagasaki, the second bomb. 3 days had passed since Hiroshima was turned to ash. The world was still struggling to understand what had happened, how one bomb could erase an entire city in seconds. But even as the smoke still rose over Hiroshima, another mission was already being prepared. Its target, the city of Kokura. Its weapon, a second atomic bomb. The bomb was called Fat Man. It was different from the first, larger, heavier, and even more powerful. Built around plutonium instead of uranium, it represented the next step in the new, terrifying science of nuclear destruction. On the morning of August 9th, 1945, the B-29 bomber boxcar took off from the island of Tinian in the Pacific. The crew had one order: to drop the bomb if visual conditions allowed. Their primary target, Kokura, was covered in clouds and smoke from a previous air raid. After 3 failed passes, they turned toward their secondary target, Nagasaki. At 11:02 a.m., the bomb bay doors opened. The Fat Man fell for 47 seconds before detonating nearly 500 meters above the city. A blinding light split the air. A sphere of fire expanded outward faster than sound. In an instant, entire neighborhoods were obliterated. A column of flame and debris rose more than 10 kilometers high, painting the sky with the color of apocalypse. Unlike Hiroshima, Nagasaki's geography, surrounded by mountains, contained part of the blast. But even so, the destruction was beyond imagination. The explosion released energy equivalent to more than 20,000 tons of TNT. Factories, homes, schools, all vanished in moments. At the center, temperatures reached unimaginable levels. Glass fused to stone. Human shadows burned into walls. Tens of thousands died instantly. Tens of thousands more would die in the weeks to come from burns, wounds, and radiation. The bomb had missed its exact aiming point by almost 2 kilometers. But in a cruel twist of fate, that small error spared part of the city and saved thousands of lives. In Tokyo, the imperial government struggled to comprehend what had happened. The unimaginable had now occurred twice. 2 cities destroyed in less than a week, by weapons no nation had ever seen before. Within days, Emperor Hirohito made his decision. On August 15, 1945, his voice was broadcast to the Japanese people for the first time in history. He told them that Japan must endure the unendurable and surrender. The Second World War, which had claimed over 60 million lives, was finally over. But peace came with a heavy shadow. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the war. Yet they also began a new era of fear and division. The world had entered the nuclear age. In the years that followed, scientists and leaders debated whether the second bomb had been necessary. Some argued it ended the war quickly, saving millions of lives that would have been lost in a ground invasion. Others saw it as a warning, a demonstration of power that scarred humanity forever. No explanation could bring back the dead or erase the suffering of the survivors. Today, Nagasaki stands as a city of peace. The ruins of Urakami Cathedral, once reduced to rubble, were rebuilt from the same stones that fell that day. Every year, on August 9th, the bells of Nagasaki ring at 11:02, the exact moment when the world's second atomic bomb exploded. The sound echoes through the hills, a solemn reminder of what must never happen again. Nagasaki's survivors, like those of Hiroshima, spent their lives speaking to future generations. Their message is simple. Science gave humanity the power to destroy itself, but it also gives us the power to heal, to rebuild, and to choose peace over annihilation. The story of Nagasaki is not just about war. It is about what came after, the resilience of a people who refused to be defined by destruction. It is about remembrance, forgiveness, and the fragile hope that no city will ever again have to bear what Nagasaki endured. Because on that day in 1945, humanity saw its own reflection in the fire. And it is up to us to decide what we become next.